All right. So just thank you guys all for coming for the last one. I really appreciate it a lot. So we have sheet pan meals today. So hopefully the most fun 15 minutes you're going to have all week. It's going to be that good. So just really glad you're back. Okay. So my name is Andrea Nicolai and I work at the University of Florida in Polk County. And then Julie England's in Seminole County and Wendy Lynch is in Putnam County. And so you can come to us. We always do evidence-based information. So that's just one benefit about listening to the webinars from um, the extension. Okay, so if you're looking at your screen, then the chat box, you might see it. And if you don't, you can hover over the bottom and it should kind of pop up, or the top sometimes. And then you can put in any questions that you have or just comments, because I can see them later. So then help me figure out how to make it better, or just kind of what you're interested in. All right. Okay. And so usually I might say, okay, so we have one next week, but this is the last one we have. And so I do have some other food and nutrition classes coming up, just for this time, especially on the web. And I'll send you this flyer afterwards, but like in a couple weeks, then I think it's actually on a Wednesday from 12:30 to 1:30. Like there's eating the Mediterranean, or 1 to 2, sorry, eating the Mediterranean way. But also if you have diabetes, or if you know if somebody does, or you just like snacking and eating out, there's one on May 22nd for that. But just you have to look, there's some good ones. So, and we'll make them fun. Okay. So then also have an evaluation, and it's just short. It's a short one, and just I really appreciate your feedback, and thank you for those of you who have done them before. I'm looking at them and taking the tips that you give me. Okay, so now about sheet pan meals, which is fun. So just, these are definitely, if you don't use these very much, something you might want to try. So there's three big things I feel like you kind of need to know, plus just a little bit of a bonus. So there's the basics, the timing, what to try. So I was thinking, what could I do that would, that you guys would want, that would be the most helpful to you? And I was looking at, well, you might want like combinations or recipes. But then I was really looking online, and you can find 1,000 recipes if you just type in sheet pan meals. And if you put like you have chicken or something, you're like sheet pan meals, chicken. I happen to have asparagus, and then you go chicken asparagus, and it'll pull up 1,000. There are a ton out there. So what I was thinking today, if I could just in this time I have with you, if I could give you the tools you need to create one that works for your family, kind of like you would be making the recipe. At least you can either modify recipes you see then, or you can just create based on what you have on hand. Okay. All right. So sheet pan meals, here's some benefits, right? They're flat out delightful. Haha. But really, they produce a well-browned exterior, moist interior, because you're roasting. So one and done. There's less dishes, less stress, completely flexible. There's no expensive equipment, no precise procedures. And you might be thinking, there is precise procedures with the time, but you'll have to hear me out here. Okay. So here's the basics. So the basics would be the pan type, right? So you want a low rim, and you want it so a low rim because you want the air to be circulating so it can breathe. And so if there's high sides, then it's more like steaming instead of roasting. So that's why you wouldn't want to use like something like a cake pan, or you'll just get more of a steamed result. You also uncover it, and then you put it in the middle of the oven. So if you're doing the top, you're broiling, and then the bottom, it's more kind of like sauteing actually. So the middle of the oven, and then this is not the time for a low and slow type of thing. That's great if you're trying to make like for like big cuts of meat that you want to tenderize or something like that, but that would cause more of the mushy type of vegetables. So what you're looking for is a higher oven temperature. Okay, so just sorry, yeah, so you guys, okay, so we just you got that. Okay, so then so yeah, so you saw that slide, sorry. It's kind of hard, I'm looking at different screens. Okay, so you want to line the pan with foil for easier cleanup, right? And you don't have to, but just, I was making some sheet pan meals, and just really cleaning the corners is not so fun. So if you can get the foil on there, that would be good. And then thinking, single layer too, just kind of like the coronavirus, you don't want to, now is not the time for overcrowding. You can use 2 pans if you want, and just kind of spread them out. And they can be closer than not touching, but just you don't want to pile them. And sometimes I think about, I just want to get it all on there. But if you can use 2 pans, it'll roast. And if otherwise, they won't cook evenly, and more steaming also and less roasting. Um, so that's important. And then just thinking about food safety too. So you might, say, well, I can kind of tell when it looks done. But chicken should be 165 and pork and fish 145. So chicken 165, pork and fish 145. And not only do you know if you check that temperature, it's safe, but you want to kill that bacteria. And then like a huge benefit is you're not going to overcook it either. So some things like fish, you're like, I don't know, maybe it's done. I think it's done. But it really, it starts to dry out after it's continuing cooking. So if you can just take it out when it's done, that will be great. All right, so timing. So you can add things that cook the same rate. You can do it the same, or you don't have to. And that's one of the biggest things I think when I was just learning about sheet pan meals was that, it doesn't have to all go on the same time. And most of the recipes actually don't have it all on the same time. But you can do that. But it's okay to stagger them. You start roasting the hardest ones first, longest cooking vegetables, and then you add the softer, quicker cooking vegetables later on. But it's important too, just that it's okay to cook them longer. And so that is one of the most fun things I think about the sheet pan is that like zucchini, summer squash, tomatoes, they have a high moisture content. So if you keep them in longer, so they're not going to take that long to cook, really, they're going to be tender. But if you leave them in longer, they're going to start to caramelize. So that's what's going to happen to the vegetables. When roasting brings out their sweetness. So they're just kind of going to continue to concentrate that sweetness if you leave them in. So you can't go wrong with roasting. It's really nice like that. So unlike like vegetables where if you boil them or steam them, you can kind of overcook them. But these guys still retain their shape and flavor. Okay, so it's good to know though, if you do want to eat faster, if you're really hungry, right, which things do kind of cook faster. And then also, if you're cooking with something like chicken, you want to know when you should put it in, because the chicken, whereas the vegetables, they can go on forever, but chicken, you might not want to leave it in there for hours. So just thinking about giving dense vegetables a head start, that can be a good thing. Like the root vegetables, I was trying to figure out, which things kind of in general take the longer time so that you guys would just have an idea without having to look it all up. So, 30 to 45 minutes, these are the long ones, the ones that are root, the dense ones. I was kind of thinking it's kind of like the shoe test. If you take the vegetable and you can, if you squish it with your shoe, then it's probably going to cook quicker. And so if it retains its split shape, then like potato, you can just stand on a potato. And so it's probably going to take longer to cook. Okay. And so here in general, just kind of the longest to shortest. And then it also depends on how big you cut them too. Okay. So if you're looking at those root vegetables and the winter squash that are the longest cooking ones, and then kind of going down, you can cut those smaller then if you want them to cook faster. So if you're really, really hungry, but you really want potatoes, maybe you could try like shredding them or just something to get them pretty small. And then, so cooking the vegetable friends together, that can be one thing that could work. So it's kind of like, if you're looking at this slide, then ones that are in that same group, and then, they'll cook about the same rate. And really, the range is not, the longest are like 30 to 45. Sometimes if they're big chunks, it might be closer to an hour. But really, even if you do leave some of those thinner one in longer, it's okay. Just remember that. So then here, putting the friends together, then they'll probably cook around the same time. And then what you're looking for is roasting to toast. So when you kind of see it browning on the edges, that's kind of where you want it, where they're crispy on the outside, tender in the inside if you stick a fork in there. And yeah, just remembering they're not like brownies or cookies where if you overbake them, you're going to have bricks. So you're gonna be okay if you don't know the same exact time of anything. And if you kind of would like to just know, put them in separate sections or put them in separate pans, then just check like about every 15 minutes. Then you're gonna kind of get an idea for next time. You'll learn, it'll stay in your mind that way. And just a kind of a tip here, just try diagonal or this roll cut. And so you can look it up online, you can look up roll cut or diagonal cut, but really all you do is you take things that are in a kind of that cylinder shape, like an eggplant, a carrot, zucchini, and just to help you make them the same size, but also helps you them cook quicker if you cut them at a diagonal. So you take a 45-degree angle, and so you can roll the carrot like a quarter turn, and then you keep your knife at the same angle, keep cutting 45, and you end up with these triangles. But that has more surface area, and so it will cook quicker because the diagonal is the more surface area. So that could be one thing you could do. Same with this flower cut. I was at the Culinary Institute just a couple of months ago, right before this started actually, but just for a conference, and they were showing us, this can help you cut them in um, in uniform shapes. So that's a carrot there in the flower. So if you have a lot of little extra time and you feel like doing that, that would be great. So meat times, just in general, the seafood is short. Think like S&S, seafood is shorter, usually the fillets and shrimp things, those are the quickest. And then the bone-in meat takes the longer time. So if it's boneless, it would take less time. And so something just like bone-in chicken breast and pork, 30 to 40 minutes. So if you're thinking about it, so those could be good things with root vegetables then, or those harder vegetables. And so right here you see a pork tenderloin. Julie actually did this one, but she's checking the thermometer too. Remember just to do that, because then you're gonna know it's done. And so, and I was looking at all these recipes, like I've looked at a lot just to make sure I was, telling you the best of everything. Just a lot of recipes use pork tenderloin, tofu is common, chickpeas, shrimp, salmon, chicken. Those things are seem to work well with this method. And beef, other than ground beef, most cuts are best suited for searing on the grill or under a broiler or in moist environment. And then just reminding, so check the temp. But beef, sometimes can be a little bit harder for the roasting. So then what to try. So we'll just get through these in the next couple of minutes here, but just really, remembering you're trying to make half your plate fruits and vegetables. So you're gonna wanna double up on the vegetables when you can, okay? So this is a great time to look in your drawers and see what you can use up and just throw it on that pan, because they taste great that way and a lot of people like them. And then you can add them to things during the week, like eggs, side dishes. You can make a fried rice, and mixing them with your tomato sauce or just putting them right on the pizza because they're already cooked. And then doing different blends and sauces will also help you just enjoy them too. And so some different things to try. So, you might have seen like chicken and potatoes in the oven, but some new things you could try in the oven would be eggs. So there's recipes for sheet pan eggs, and you could just throw other things on them, right? But I was having fun. You could put your eggs in a cookie cutter. I would just say spray the cookie cutter first. I did not. And then if you're trying to do a star, there's some little, yeah, I had a lot of fun cleaning that. But there's things like chili that are where they roast the cauliflower first, right? And then you you take it out and you add in black beans, tomato sauce, corn, and then you could put like cornmeal biscuits like topped right in on there, and then just finish baking it. So things like that. And then fruit also too. Think about like things like cranberries or peaches or pears. Peaches are in season right now in Florida. So something new, you could also do grilled cheese just on one part of it. You could top salad stuff, and then just roast, not the lettuce, but just all the stuff that's going on the salad, like chickpeas maybe, and some vegetables. And then doing things like grain salads. So there's some excellent recipes out there where you're taking a grain, even like quinoa or farro, and then you're putting it with artichokes and olives, and you just add on, when you take it out, then you put some feta on there, maybe some tomatoes, and then you have kind of a meal right there in your sheet pan. Okay, so then just a couple other things. You could roast garlic cloves. You just throw them on there, and then you can mash them and then mix them in with the flavor to give it more flavor, I mean. And things like cheese crisps. I don't know if any of you guys have done that, but if you see on the bottom left corner there's cheddar cheese in those four, and then mozzarella's on the other two. But you can make like these cheese crackers. So you could, if you had part of your pan where you weren't really using, you could just put down a little pile of shredded cheese and make a cheese cracker to go like kind of with your dish, I guess. And then I was just kind of brainstorming after reading all these recipes, but you know, you could do a 4-course meal on a sheet pan. So you have something like garlic bread, bruschetta, and then you put like your salad toppers, then your main protein with your vegetables, and you could put something like cookies or roasted fruit right with there. And you know, cookies usually go to lower temp, but if you do go at 400 degrees, it's going to result in a puffier cookie kind of with a crunchy exterior, and then it'll be kind of that soft underdone interior, just like when you're doing the vegetables, or you know, the softer interior. So it's how you like your cookies, I guess. I'm going with fruit though, right? So just bonus tips here. So just, you can season them together or you can do them separately also. So just remember that, you know, you don't always have to have everything garlic and onion, you know, you can do the vegetables something different. And then if you're doing something where you want it kind of breaded to crisp them up, you could put them on that roasting rack. And then you could put vegetables, you know, underneath them if you wanted, or you share the rack with the vegetables. But you can use like even a metal cookie cooling rack if you have that instead. We like to use that. So the last thing I have then is just kind of remembering to have fun, you know, so you can't go wrong here. Just be creative and just enjoy, I guess, being with your family and trying some different foods. So then here's those classes I have coming up again. I'll send that to you. And then sending you evaluation. So Wendy, sometimes she has time to put it in the chat box for you, but sometimes it's hard to get it out of there before the presentation even ends. But I'll send you that link then so you can do that evaluation, so then you can help me make this presentation better, and then any future ones you happen to listen to, hopefully better also. And then just, does anybody have any questions? I know I went a couple of minutes over, so I appreciate you all staying with me. And one other thing too I wanted to say, when you're roasting those vegetables, if you can leave the skin on, that's where a lot of the nutrients are. You know, it'll save you time because you don't have to peel it. So you just wash it really well. But then leaving that skin on, even things like, you know, carrots, obviously, but things like potatoes, you can even eat squash and pumpkin peels after, you know, if they're roasted long enough. So just, those are some things, you know, just to keep in mind, I guess. So I don't know, Wendy or Julie, do you guys see any questions? I just thank everybody for coming and listening.
I'll let Wendy read the questions in a second, but I just want to make a comment. Somebody put in that they cut into their meat to see if it was done. Well, so when I cook pork tenderloins, that was a picture of my pork tenderloin with a thermometer stuck in it. So I always know that it's cooked. And sometimes even though when you cut open the pork tenderloin, it looks a little pink, but you know it's been cooked because it hit that temperature. And that way, before I started using a meat thermometer all the time, I used to overcook about every 3 times. Like I did a pork tenderloin, I overcooked it once. So the quality of your food will be a lot better, and if you use a meat thermometer, so it won't get dry. So check it out. So now I'll let Wendy talk.
So Andrea, one of the questions that was asked about keeping the skin on, what about winter squash, butternut, and acorn squash?
Yeah, you actually can if you cook it long enough. There's some, like sometimes at the very end of them, they're a little bit hard, but yeah, it'll kind of just melt in there actually. Sometimes it's a little bit addicting, kind of like chips, you know. It has a different texture than the inside, but you could. So it's kind of nice to know.
Yep, that's a great tip to know. And then also, can you use, I know it has to be a low-sided pan, but can you use like a glass baking dish?
You can, you know, it's really suggested, I think, to try to do a lower side thing. And, you know, you might have luck, but I think probably Yeah, it's like definitely don't let that hinder you or stop you because it's going to be delicious. You know, it just might be a little bit more steam than you might get a little bit more steam and a little bit less of the like brownish edges. Um,
Great.
if that helps. And you could try putting a rack in there just to raise them up and, you know, give them circulation a little bit more
That's
on
a
the
good
things
idea.
you want, a little crisper.
That's a great idea. And a lot of folks are putting in great ideas for ideas, sweet potato skins, talking about purple sweet potatoes.
Oh, yum. Yeah.
So, but and I think that was the last one. Last question. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys all coming in. Wendy and Julie, thank you. And hopefully you guys will see you at some of the other classes. And stay well, everybody. Thank you.